Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll show you a crime comedy film, SUBURBICON. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins with a man narrating the town's history. In just a little more than a decade, the town has grown exponentially into a bustling community of 60,000 residents. Indeed, it is the idyllic town that embodies the American dream. A bright morning dawns over the town as the mailman approaches the house of the new arrivals. He is eager to welcome them, but is surprised that who he initially thought was the maid is actually the wife. This is because the family is African American and the town is mostly white. Soon enough, this also troubles the rest of their neighbors. They petition to throw out the new family because they are not in favor of racially integrating their neighborhood. A paraplegic housewife and her identical twin sister watch the new family move in from their porch. The paraplegic is incensed that the African Americans will decrease their property values. However, her twin sister, nicknamed Bloody Mary, is more welcoming of the idea of racial integration. She even encourages the paraplegic's son to play with the young boy from the African American family. The son approaches the boy and they go off to play. The neighbors watch them with curious eyes. That night, two hitmen break into their house. One of them wakes the son up and ushers him into the living room where his mother, father, and aunt are. One bully is also there and he intimidates the paraplegic's husband by demanding that he serve them drinks. The bully curiously asks how the woman became a paraplegic, and she answers matter-of-factly that she and her husband were in a car accident. The two hitmen tie the family to chairs around the kitchen table. They whip out a bottle of chloroform and drug the family members, starting with Bloody Mary, possibly because of her shitty name. One by one, they lose consciousness. A while later, the son wakes up in a hospital. His father and aunt are already awake, but he discovers that his paraplegic mother hasn't woken up yet. It turns out that the two hitmen had inadvertently given the paraplegic a higher dosage, resulting in her organs failing and her eventual death. Soon after, they hold a funeral for the paraplegic. Bloody Mary is there weeping, while the son is still too shocked to openly grieve for his dead mother. His uncle, the twin sister's brother, nicknamed Uncle Fatty, comforts the son and makes him laugh. The husband also informs the son that Bloody Mary will be staying with them for a while to help take care of things now that his paraplegic wife is gone. At home, Bloody Mary assumes the wife's role and tries to be a mother figure to the son. Still, the young son is too shocked and just stays quiet as he goes about his days. One morning, the African-American boy he previously played with comes over to their front yard and conveys his condolences regarding his loss. The boy is playing with a small and thin snake, and he gives it to the son. The son is delighted by this, and for the first time, things begin to look up after his mother's passing. That night, the son wakes up terrified in his bed, replaying the trauma of the night when the two men broke into their house. Bloody Mary and the husband walk out of the kitchen together and see the son awake. She tucks him into bed and tells him about his patron saint, who will keep him safe from harm. The next day, Bloody Mary takes the son out and they encounter some neighbors at the bus stop. They commiserate with the family's grief and express that they are shocked that such a heinous crime occurred in their perfect town. At the same moment, the African-American family drives by and a neighbor woman shoots them dirty looks because she blames them for bringing crime to their neighborhood. The husband goes back to work and his colleagues are all sad about his wife's death. They awkwardly try to console him. A policeman calls his office and informs him that he's been assigned to his case. Two suspects have been brought in, and the policeman asks the husband to identify if they are the two hitmen who broke into the house. He arrives at the police station and sees that the police had also contacted Bloody Mary and his son to come as well. The husband is angry that the police are subjecting his son to reliving a traumatic experience, and so the policeman asks the son to stay out of the room. But the son creeps in, and he sees several men in a lineup, and his dad and Bloody Mary looking at them from behind a pane of glass. Bloody Mary announces that none of the men are their attackers, but the son clearly sees that the two men are in the lineup, and for some reason, his father and aunt are not identifying them. The lights in the room go on, and they discover that the son is right behind them. When they get home that night, the son confronts his father about him not identifying the attackers correctly. However, the father tries to convince the son that he's mistaken and that the attackers were not there at all. The boy insists that he knows what he saw, but his father cuts him off and orders him not to talk to anyone about this. The next day, Bloody Mary goes to a salon and gets her hair dyed blonde, just like the dead paraplegic's hair, attempting to be a blonde Mary in this family. That night, looking just like her dead sister, she dances with the husband. They bend their heads close to each other, and it is clear that the two are in love. The son's friendship with the African-American boy is deepened, despite the growing crowd of protesting townspeople gathering in front of the boy's house every night. They spew hatred at the family and demand that they leave their town. Meanwhile, Uncle Fatty becomes increasingly worried about the son's situation. He fears that there is something wrong with the husband and Bloody Mary, but he does not know what exactly. He confesses his worries to his priest, who assures him that the boy is okay and his sister Bloody Mary is the best mother figure he can have right now. One afternoon, the son arrives at an empty house. He hears some noise coming from the basement and he investigates. He shockingly discovers his father and his aunt in a compromising position. Everyone is too shocked to say anything. The son tries to call his uncle, but he is in a meeting. The two attackers barge into the husband's office and beat him up. They are angry that the husband is not upholding his end of the deal. It appears that he hired the two hitmen to kill his wife in fake robbery. This is why the husband was insisting that the son not be in the room, so he could not be able to identify the two hitmen. The two hitmen are now furious because the son has seen them in the lineup. Uncle Fatty calls the husband and tells him that someone called his office with the name of his dead wife. He is now worried and says that he wants to visit and make sure that the son is all right. The husband rebuffs his attempts to help and says that they all need time to properly grieve the wife's passing. That night, the husband calls his son into the study to talk. He says that the son will be sent away to a boarding school so he can be disciplined. This is an attempt to silence the son and hide the truth about the wife's murder. The next day, the African-American housewife tries to do grocery shopping at the store where Bloody Mary works. The manager jacks up the prices of the goods she is going to buy and suggests that she just shop at a different store. Understanding that she is being discriminated against, she concedes and leaves. In bed with Bloody Mary that night, the husband tells her that once they get the dead wife's life insurance money, they can go away to Aruba. Bloody Mary is delighted at the idea. The policeman drops by the husband's office and tells him that a mob loan shark recently died. The cops take a look at his books and discover that the husband's name is in there. Of course, the husband denies all this. Later, a claims investigator for the insurance company visits Bloody Mary at the house. He tells her that before they can receive the check, he needs to resolve some red flags first. For example, he mentions that the husband had increased the wife's policy shortly before her death. He had also already cashed out on a claim when they got into the car accident. Lastly, he hasn't been paying his home loan for the past few months, but cashed out $5,000 from his own insurance policy. Bloody Mary explains that it was the husband's idea to increase his wife's policy, and that they lost their savings when the husband had opened his own business, which is why he hasn't been able to pay. Right then, she notices that the son has been watching them and sends him to his room. She prepares a cup of tea for the investigator, who good-naturedly keeps things light and assures her that it's all just a routine check. He starts telling her about the outlandish claims he had investigated before, and Bloody Mary laughs at his funny stories. Suddenly, he turns serious and reveals that she and the husband are the biggest scammers of all. He was lying when he said that the husband had increased the insurance policy, and when Bloody Mary said that they had lost their savings, not just the husband. The investigator knew that they were sleeping together and most likely killed the wife. Bloody Mary is shaken by his accusations and chases him out of the house with a broom. Meanwhile, the angry mob in front of the African-American family's house grows even wilder. They begin to raucously shout, and policemen have to restrain them. The husband still hasn't paid the two hitmen, and so they decide to teach him a lesson. The husband arrives home later, and Bloody Mary hurriedly explains what happened with the claims investigator. The investigator arrives shortly after 2 and asks Bloody Mary for a cup of coffee before comfortably sitting down on the couch. He offers the husband a compromise. They cut in on the life insurance money in exchange for his silence. If the two refuse, he will turn them in to the police. However, the husband threatens to kill him too, but the investigator confidently says that if anything happens to him, the insurance company will surely know the truth. He takes a sip of the coffee Bloody Mary prepared, confident that he's got them right where he wanted. Suddenly, he turns red and clutches his throat. Meanwhile, the mob outside decides to wreck the African-American's family's house and trashes their car. Still clutching his throat, the investigator runs outside and calls for help. Panicked, Bloody Mary admits that she added lye to his coffee. The husband chases after the investigator with a bat and bludgeons him to death. Because all the attention is on the ongoing riot, no one notices this murder. The husband stashes the investigator's body in the trunk of his car. He drives away with the corpse, not noticing one of the hitmen following him. The husband dumps the car and bikes away from the scene. The hitman continues to follow him. Back in his room, the son calls Uncle Fatty for help, but the call disconnects soon. He turns and sees that Bloody Mary had cut the cord. Bloody Mary is left with no choice but to silence the son forever. She mashes a handful of pills and puts the powder on a sandwich and in a glass of milk. As she goes upstairs to poison the son, another hitman has snuck into the house and strangles her to be the dead Mary. After that, the hitman busts the son's bedroom door open and finds the child hiding under the bed. At that critical moment, Uncle Fatty arrives and tussles with the hitman, fatally shooting him. He instructs the son to hide in the closet and comforts him, leaving the gun in his possession. However, blood seeps into Uncle Fatty's shirt from a serious stab wound inflicted by the hitman, and he calls the police. The other hitman catches up to the husband as he's biking home. The hitman slyly tells him that there's a surprise waiting for him when he gets back. Horrified, the husband asks him what he did, and the hitman is too busy to notice that a truck is approaching. It hits him, and he dies. The husband returns as fast as he could, but he is too late. He sees the bodies of the hitman, Bloody Mary, and Uncle Fatty, who had ultimately succumbed to his stab wound. He then finds his son hiding in the closet. The son bravely points the gun at him. The husband easily takes it away. In the same kitchen table the attackers once tied them to, the husband lays down the law for his son. Either the child chooses to corroborate his story that the hitman had killed everyone, and then they will go to Aruba together, or if he tries to speak up, the father will kill him and say that he was just one of the hitman's victims. The husband then begins to eat the poisoned sandwich and drink the milk Bloody Mary had prepared earlier. As he chews, he tells his son to take his time deciding, since it's Sunday. Morning comes, and the African-American family begins to clean the wreckage caused by the riot last night. The son calmly watches TV, while his father's dead body is slumped over the kitchen table. The movie ends with the son going out on the front porch and seeing the neighbor boy throwing a baseball. He approaches the neighbor boy, and they begin to play. All is well in their picture-perfect town. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.